If you've ever felt like you're the only one making the plans, you feel like you're doing everything in your relationship and in the family dynamic in the household, this conversation is for you. Let's get into it because I would say this is part of the decision making, deciding moment series. I took a brief hiatus on that yesterday because something really hit me that I wanted to talk to you about while it was warm around creativity and reinventing yourselves in your 40s and what that looks like for me. And I have no answers. I'm going on the journey with you. So if that interests you, you can check that video out. But this one is a doozy. I remember I was having a coaching call with a couple, and we got to the point because I always do this with my couples to, that where we're talking about appreciation. Okay, let's share some appreciations for each other, and we got to be specific. And he said, I got home from work. I was tired, and I know my wife was tired too. And when I came in the door, she had turned on, because the TV was off, she had turned on my favorite channel and put the remote and a drink just on the couch. Like they had like one of those couch with the cup holders and it reclines and all the things. And that was it. And then she went about what she was doing, but she set that up for him. And he was like, I really appreciated that. And she was looking like, I didn't even know that you recognized and acknowledged that I did that. But he did. Now he didn't say it to her in the time at that moment, right? In that moment at that time. But while we were together, he said it, right? So it was there. And one of the things that, like, I feel like our issues as human beings, all of us as human beings, that we don't necessarily do well is we don't express appreciation well. We express complaints, we express annoyances, we express our grievances, okay, as per my last email, okay, type of situation, but we don't necessarily express appreciation well. Because here's the thing, if you feel like you're doing all the things, you feel like you're doing all the scheduling, all the planning, anytime something has to be done, it falls on you. There's going to be tension. But one thing that I do know is that when you have one person that feels like that, you usually have another person who feels like whatever they do is not enough. So you have one person who's like, everything falls on me. I always have to do everything, fix everything, etc. And another person who's like, I do things, they don't see it, and anything I do is never enough. And those two things together create a lot of tension. Sometimes it's quiet tension, sometimes it's loud tension, but it's definitely tension because those two dynamics trying to exist together is extremely uncomfortable. It doesn't feel secure. It doesn't feel like you're seen or acknowledged. It doesn't feel kind of loving in the way that we want it to feel. And yet that can happen. It can happen in seasons where you just feel like that. But I always try to remember for myself, those two dynamics are usually happening together. And how do we combat that? How do we as human beings get better at moving through decisions together, feeling like we're working together as a team, we're collaborating? I know these are buzzwords, like as a team, but I think about these things too. I say the word team, and my husband's like team, even though he knows what I mean. He knows what I mean. But yeah, just feeling like you're in a partnership. And so, one thing that I know is paramount to this is expressing appreciation. And again, we're not so great at that. It's a muscle we have to build. I would say I had that muscle to a degree, but being married, being with my husband for 17 years, and just nurturing friendships, all kinds of relationships, sibling dynamics that are sometimes challenging, and relationship dynamics, right? Like all of the things, I've gotten better at it. Being a marriage coach and working with couples and working through that with them, I've gotten better at it to the point where it's my default, to the point where I always think about saying the thing that's in my head, where I'm probably the mushy one because I'm going to tell you what you've done for me and how much I appreciate you. I'm going to say it. And I would say that's the first and key thing, because appreciation makes you feel acknowledged and it makes you feel seen, right? I know it does for me. Like someone's like, girl, like when you help me with my bags downstairs, I was so tired. That's such a simple example. I don't know why that's the example that came to me. But ultimately, like any little thing, it makes you feel like, oh, this person is acknowledging something that I did. And I just did it. And yet and still they saw it and they saw me and they appreciate it. It feels nice. And so even in our relationship dynamics, in that example with the remote, just like changing the channel to something that she knew her husband would be interested in, that this was years ago. And that story of appreciation sticks with me because it was so specific. And because at the moment she thought it was so simple, she didn't think anything of it. But it actually was really something that made him feel comfortable, welcome, open to chill and kind of decompress from work for a little bit before getting back into the routine stuff. And she had been home for a few hours from work. And so that it's the specificity. And even on her end, the fact that, hey, I acknowledge that I get a couple hours when I get off to chill, and you just came in, so let me give you that same grace. It lends itself to that kind of reciprocity. And so to me, appreciation and acknowledgement at the top of that list, because someone, remember that dynamic, someone who feels like anything they do is not enough, they need that validation, that sense of like, you see that I'm doing something and appreciate it. Same thing with the person who feels like I'm doing everything. Not only do they need some support in not feeling like they do everything, which I'm going to get to in a second, but I feel like you also need that sense of, I see what you're doing and I see you're doing a lot, right? I know that you're doing X, Y, and Z. And that makes a difference on both sides of that. When it comes to this idea of, we're running the household together, but it's not working. How we're doing it isn't working for us anymore because one or both of you feel burdened. Austin and I have been through so many different iterations of life. He's worked a traditional job. I haven't. We both worked traditional jobs. He's worked really close to home, like super close, where I could just meet him for lunch. He can come home for lunch. He's worked super far, where it's like an hour there and an hour back. So you're talking about a 2-hour commute, which changes his energy level. I've worked far. We've moved places, we've moved locations, we've had kids. The kids that now are in different extracurricular activities. Like, you just go through iterations of life where you feel like things are changing. And yet, we don't always change how we're doing things in the house. We were like, this is how we've always done it. But he and I have had to be like, okay, so if this is going to be the change, you're probably not going to be able to do this anymore. Like, you're probably not going to be able to do the bedtime routine anymore if you're coming home at 9 o'clock. So what are we going to do to kind of switch this around? Because you're also gone in the morning, right? So what can we do, acknowledging that your level of exhaustion is going to be high, and because of what I'm doing, that I get off earlier and I don't have the same commute while I'm tired, there's things that I can do beforehand. And what is it that you can do that you're comfortable with, right? You're an early riser. Will you do some prep for the food for me in the day and you, or something like that? You can order the groceries online. Like, I can't stand grocery shopping. My husband took that over. But there was a time when the grocery shopping was my responsibility and I did that. And now for the last few years, he's taken over the grocery shopping. And so you got to change it up if it's not working, because you have to look at how your life is. We have to be like, this is what our life is right now. This is the reality of how we're moving. We can't do it the same way we did it before. We're going to have to make some shifts. And how we make that shift is we look at the logistics of the situation, like I just said, and our exhaustion level because of those logistics, and what has to get done and what we can let go of, and we make those decisions. And We also look at our strengths, um, and play to them when it comes to like money and budgeting and finances and all of that. I think I said before, I do like the budgets and kind of keep us on task there. The day to day minutia, like registry keeping, he handles that. Investment, he handles that. Even though we talk to each other, because that's his strength. My strength is more big picture budgeting, staying on budget, moving things around. The puzzle pieces of that, and then we come together and we have a discussion about it, right? So we look at what makes sense for us when it comes to homeschooling, when it comes to money, investment, and math. I do a little bit of math. That's his strength. I pick up on maybe the humanities, the reading, writing, language arts. We both work on history and instilling that in the kids. So again, we're looking at like where do our strengths lie? What can we do that's going to easily fold into the mix here? And so that's how we pretty much figure that out, like playing to what our strengths are, what our exhaustion level is, what's the reality of what's happening in our lives right now. And we've had to do that here because we're in a completely different country. So things are going to how we do life period is going to shift a bit. And one thing that we were at least cognizant of, but it's a process, was not taking up every way that we've done it before and try to just plop that into this new scenario. And to be honest, we had practice with it. We had practice with it prior to, because we were already pivoting when we needed to pivot, when things started to shift and change, transitions, all the things that happen. So that was a biggie for us. And the third thing I think is we just try stuff. We're like, okay, this is how we think. We think this will flow better. This sounds good. This sounds like it's something that's feasible that we could do. Let's try it. And we could try it, and then it doesn't work out, and then we're like, okay, this didn't really work out, so we might have to tweak some things. Or we try and like, great, it works out, let's keep going for the season until it's no longer serving us or it's no longer working out for whatever reason. And those things, I swear those things really help us navigate change and transition well. We're not afraid to change. We're not afraid to pivot. We are practicing appreciating each other and acknowledging each other for what it is that we bring to the table, not just in responsibilities and logistical things, but just in who we are in character. Like, I couldn't bring my um, I guess I could have, but I didn't. We were like, oh, we'll probably find it in Panama. I didn't bring my heating pad with me. I like having my heating pad. I use it every month religiously. Sometimes he'll have some back stuff and we can use it with him. And I couldn't find one here. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna get you a heating pad, babe. You know what I mean? I know that's something that you really wanted. We've looked and we couldn't find it here, like the electric one you could plug in. I'm gonna order one for you. And it's that kind of thoughtfulness and seeing me and seeing like this is something that I might need. um and that, I don't know, I mean, that it might not fit neatly into the box of appreciation, but it does fit into feeling seen, even in quote unquote small ways. And I very much appreciate it, right? So I let him know that I appreciate it. I let him know that that kind of thoughtfulness for something that seems so simple is something that I truly appreciate. And he does that kind of thing very often. That's kind of just who he is. And even though I'm like, yeah, he knows that's who he is, he knows I appreciate him, I still say it. And I let him know why. Because just saying, hey, I appreciate you, or just saying thank you can say that to anybody. Somebody holds a stranger holds the door for you, and we're like, thank you, if we're not rude and we have manners. I've had to be like, you're welcome, but if we're not rude and we have manners, a stranger opens the door for us and we're like, thank you. But when it comes to more intimate relationships, being like, look, I appreciated that you took over the the groceries. I hate grocery shopping, and I did it for years because that's what made sense for us at the time. I didn't like it, but adulting, you got to do what you got to do. People got to eat. Kids always want to eat, so groceries. And he was like, I'll take that over, and he has, and it's great. He does 99% of the cooking, even since we've been here, especially since we've been here. I love it so much. I love it so much. And I tell him like every day how good it is, how much I appreciate it. He's really chefing it up. He's so creative. I mean, I know it's a little bit selfish, but also it's true. Okay. I do really, really appreciate it. And we're in the habit of that. We've built that muscle, and it's just continuing to do it. And that's been a game changer for us. I don't know if we were kind of rigid about that. I don't know if making the transition, like to move out of the US and move to another country and experience another culture and another way of life and another way of doing things that is unfamiliar to us, if that would have been, I don't know if that would have been as seamless relationally as it feels. The shifts and the changes that we've had to make feel like okay. So I don't have that feeling of like, oh, I'm always doing everything, or he's always doing everything. Now he might feel like I'm always having to cook. I was like, we can eat out today. We can just have breakfast for dinner, or I will cook something. Okay. I am in the 1%. I will cook something. But I don't believe we would have had as seamless a transition as we did if we didn't exercise appreciation, acknowledgement with some level of specificity, if we didn't pivot and like be comfortable with pivoting and changing, and if we didn't just try things and see. I think that's part of this journey almost as a whole. try try and see. Don't let anyone tell you that it can't be done or that's not the way to do it. Because if the way that you're currently doing something, if the way that we're currently doing something isn't serving us, and we just keep doing it that way, like, what are we doing? At the very least, you try something different. What's the worst that can happen is you find out it's worse than what you were doing before. So like, okay, that's not an option. But also, in the same vein, it can also feel a lot better and a lot more comforting than what you were doing before. And yeah, and when it comes to making decisions, not feeling completely overwhelmed. I feel like you feel overwhelmed in different situations anyway. But when you have some give and take in a partnership, when you're looking at what makes sense so there isn't tension, quiet or loud, it does make a difference. I have felt the difference over the years, and it's just a relief. It's a relief. But yeah, if this resonates with you, please let me know down in the comments below, right? Do you feel like the person who does everything and plans everything? Do you feel like the person who is not acknowledging nothing you do is ever enough? Maybe you're both in one, right? It's very nuanced, I think, in that way. So maybe you're both in once. But let me know in the comments if you're feeling, um, you're feeling froggy, jump. No. But if you're feeling like sharing, I would love to hear it and continue the conversation with you in the comment section. And if well, hopefully this was something that resonated with you. Hopefully this felt encouraging and at least in like motivating to like try something different. To see like, oh, okay, we're in this kind of rut situation. Perhaps these quote unquote small tweaks can make a shift. They definitely, like I said, have done it for me. I've seen it do it for other people. And it's a relief and a blessing. It's great. It's great over here on this side. Everything does not always go as smooth as you want it to, but I know in my bones that it would be a lot smooth. It would be a bumpy, sharp ride if we didn't exercise these kinds of things, these aspects of taking action for ourselves and being aware and shifting and pivoting and all of that. It would be bad. I feel like it would be worse. So yeah, hopefully this conversation empowers you and encouraged you to try something different. If it did, let me know in the comments. And for those of you who don't know, I'm Imani Aisha. I am here making videos to help us feel good in our intimate relationship with self and with our partners, and to do so in the midst of so many challenges and changes and transitions, which is life. This is life. So if having these conversations around that opens up something in you, makes you feel good, makes you something click for you, then hopefully that's your vibe. And if so, please subscribe. And I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow. Thanks for listening.